and positivity, everyone. It's Takesha of Native Nubian Wellness, and you are watching another session of Black Women Who Blaze. Today, I have a very special guest with me, and she is another woman who is blazing trails in the Connecticut cannabis community and industry. And I'm so excited to connect with her and share space, and that she decided to come on the platform and join the tribe. So, Tiana is the founder and high empress of Lady Jane, a luxury cannabis wellness brand. Tiana is a visionary leader with a track record for excellence in advocating on behalf of the marginalized in her beloved community of Hartford, where she serves on the city council. Professionally, she has been practicing criminal law for over a decade. She has represented countless individuals charged with marijuana possession and other drug related offenses and believes that no one should be imprisoned for nonviolent drug offenses. She has practiced in the areas of immigration, family law, and civil litigation. Before joining the Sills Law Firm, Tiana was a dedicated member of the Public Defender's Office. Notably, she has helped lead an anti gun violence initiative in Hartford. Amazing. She has served on several nonprofit boards. Tiana is a proud mother of three, and her greatest role by far, I'm quite sure. She currently is an appointed commissioner for the Connecticut Commission for Children, Women, Seniors, Equality, and Opportunity. In the past, she was employed as a special assistant to former Hartford Mayor Pedro E. Segarra. Okay. Lately, her time has been consumed learning more about the cannabis industry as a pathway for intergenerational wealth and economic justice. Tiana's company, Connecticut Cultivation Solutions, is one of the first adult use cannabis cultivators in Connecticut. Thank you for joining the platform and sharing your time with the tribe. Tiana Hercules, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Keisha. First, just thank you so much for extending this invitation. You are someone in this industry and in this space that I admire greatly. Your collaborative spirit, your knowledge, your energy is always just so on point and just so magnetizing or magnetic. So I'm really am honored to be here sharing space with you today to talk a little bit about, my journey into cannabis and what we can hope for in the future in Connecticut's cannabis industry.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much for that. Thank you. And I've been in Connecticut for quite some time. I'm not a native Connecticut. I'm a native New Yorker, but you are native to Connecticut, right? And so growing up here, you've seen so much, especially in our community. And it feels like that may have been a part of what uh really drove you or called you to get into, law and the justice system. So how was that for you to kind of grow up in Connecticut and then decide, hey, I'm going to get involved with, changing some things?
Yeah, for sure. And I appreciate you appreciate you saying that. Yeah, I grew up in a small town in southeastern Connecticut, New London, which is a working class kind of blue collar town for the most part, pretty ethnically and racially diverse, but certainly a working class community. And I actually grew up in one of my first, homes after being born was the what we call Crystal Avenue projects, which is where these high rise housing projects, which actually were recently demolished, so they don't even exist anymore.
Wow.
And just growing up in a certain environment where poverty and certain governmental policies and over policing kind of are just always part, it's a character in your story,
Mhm.
as a Black person in an urban community in this country. And so certainly observing a lot of injustice, inequities, under resourced schools, under resourced youth programs, not enough resources to just go around. And so that creates obviously a certain situation and a certain conditions in a community. But once I left, I went to public schools throughout my upbringing, and then I went to a small college, liberal arts, predominantly white institution within New London called Connecticut College. And so it was like these two worlds existing in this one city, where you have this very affluent college, on the hill within the confines of New London. And it kind of, that was the first time I really had been exposed to social and economic disparity in that type of way. Because growing up, when you're in your environment, pretty much everybody is kind of like, on the same page. So you don't really notice those differences. But being thrust into the college was like, whoa, kids were driving Mercedes Benzes, their parents were able to pay the full $60,000 a year, tuition. It was like, wait a minute, this is kind of crazy, right? And so just that's what kind of really sparked my interest in learning more about social justice and sociology and racial and ethnic disparities and how that translates into economic injustice, and learning that Connecticut is one of the most economically segregated, has the biggest wealth gap, in the country between black and white, and learning more about what the net worth of, the average black family is in comparison to the average white family, and figuring out, how did we get here, and really analyzing, the legal system as kind of being set up to create, a system where these inequities and injustices were actually codified into law, right? If we think about redlining, if we think about Jim Crow, if we think about all of these policies and things that existed on the books to create the system that we now see. And also over policing, was also another major character in my upbringing, having several loved ones who were incarcerated or had come in contact with the legal system in some way or form. It almost seemed like just part of the way it is. And I always questioned things like that. I was interrogate things that just people just take at face value as being the way it is, as it doesn't have to be that way. And so I really wanted to learn more about the legal system and how it works, and how we can avoid being victims to it in a sense, right? And also recognizing that there aren't a lot of black attorneys and black attorneys of color specifically that came from the New London community. And so wanting to really figure out how I could use my skill set and things that I'm interested in and things that I'm passionate to really serve my community. So that's really what sparked, my career path into the legal system and wanting to be a lawyer.
Wow, wow. Wow, and I just love how you saw what was happening in your community, and you didn't you wanted to affect change there. For me, I saw so much of what you describe in my own community in New York and Staten Island. And we just wanted to get out. A lot of us just wanted to get out, and that was, when I found the opportunity to do so. um when I was young, I used to hear a lot about Connecticut on the radio, and it's just like you said, had this thought, because of how it was portrayed, living here, that this was a different, opportunity, for me, but not realizing that it exists everywhere we go. We have the same, like you said, disparity in every, area when it comes to this country. And the wealth gap with between certain communities, and to find people that actually feel like, listen, no, I'm not leaving, I'm going to affect change, and we can have this and more, if we pull together, is important, especially in your own space. And I really would love have had that type of initiative and community in my own space amongst my peers. But I'm glad that I found another home. I mean, Connecticut's basically my second home. I've been here half my life now. So to have that a home here and find people who are just as passionate about creating systemic change and affecting the lives of others, of future generations, our children, is important. And so, and you have been very welcoming. I've been here quite a while, and it hasn't been the same with in every area, but to align and connect with you has been really refreshing. So I thank you. But we wanted, before we dive into the deep end of of all the things that you do, because your bio is really amazing, right? In the short period of time that we've been able to do this type of work, and you, like you said, you've been practicing for over 10 years, and you've been a criminal defense attorney. So you've been on the side of those who need someone to represent their case, in them in authenticity. And so how has that been, like you said, especially for people who have nonviolent, you know, drug related offenses.
Yeah.
And I come from a family who's abused substances and have been arrested for things, you know, um, and they have been nonviolent. So, what
Yeah.
made you dive into that end?
Yeah, it's just what you said, knowing the humanity behind the people that I represent, and that, they're very similar to people that I call brother, sister, mother, and so forth. And so being able to understand the underlying factors behind what contributes to folks making certain choices, right? And a lot of it can be tied to mental health and substance use disorder, and growing up in an oppressive environment where there's a lot of trauma, and folks are trying to self-medicate, oftentimes, and that leads them down the road to utilizing substances. And certainly that isn't something that I view that should be criminalized. Really, folks need support, folks need treatment, and resources, wraparound resources. And so when I present, a case of someone who is in that circumstance, it is really about advocating and being able to convey who they are at the human level, beyond, their addiction, and beyond the penalty or the crime that they may have been, charged with. And similarly to individuals who choose to, unfortunately, deal in narcotics and in the drug trade, um recognizing that nobody wakes up, or I should say not nobody, because there is a very rare person who wakes up and says, I just want to sell a bunch of drugs today. Like, that's
Right.
just what I want to do. I think it's a very rare individual who chooses to do that. More often than not, it's that's what's around you. That's a quick way to make money. You don't have to apply. You just kind of get up and, figure out how to do that, right? And so recognizing that, given other alternatives, especially when we're talking about young folks, given other alternatives, folks would make a different choice, and that we need to figure out certainly how to resource communities, so where those other alternatives exist, and can outweigh those negative choices, which have, negative collateral and detrimental consequences. Oftentimes, losing your life obviously is the first ultimate consequence, but losing your liberty is would be the second one to that. That's pretty detrimental, right? And so
Mhm.
always recognizing that, outside of, again, the conviction that the person that I have the privilege of representing is a human being, and it's my job to be able to communicate that effectively to the court, and kind of work out the best possible deal that I can. Or if the case is, if the warrant or whatever, the police report is flawed in some type of way, get the case tossed. And
Right.
so everybody has a right to fair representation, has a right to a zealous defense, regardless of what crime they stand accused of. And so I often am able to look past, things that, obviously wouldn't agree with and wouldn't choose for myself, but this is a human being, and they have the right to be defended in a way that, they can get a fair shake, understanding that this legal system is not set up to be fair, for especially for people of color. And so I take my, responsibility as an advocate, as a defense attorney, very seriously. And yeah, I'm proud of the work that I've been able to do, but recognizing that, it's very incremental work, right? You work with one client, two clients, three clients. It's hard to make a community wide and a system wide impact. And so that's one of the things that led me into the cannabis industry, figuring out how I can leverage social and hopefully financial capital to make more system and community wide change.
Yes, yes. And you are joining such a long line of historical activists and advocates for the injustice system that we've experienced. It's just two different systems for us. And so we do need more of us who have the tenacity, to get involved in that space. And it takes a lot of dedication and study, to undergo and understand the laws, the various laws that exist, and then also to come from a community and a culture who, doesn't feel, that the system works for them, obviously. And then, they have to come to you and kind of trust that, hey, I'm on your side. It's not, I'm not just working in the system and working for them, but I'm also on your side and working with you, to change not just this system, but also can help hopefully change your life and the outcome of what you're faced with. So we truly
Yeah.
appreciate that. The Black women are definitely, we're the foundation of a lot of things that we don't get credit for, because we
Yeah.
pick up, the heavy work. We do a lot of the heavy lifting. And so I see why you would be called to the cannabis industry
Hmm.
as a way to not only be able to help others in the legalities of it, right? But as a way to build wealth, to be able to now, broaden your reach in your community. That's why, that's our why is so different than so
Yeah.
many other people, you
Yeah,
know.
absolutely. You hit the nail on the head because, we can recognize, when you have this awareness, when you have this knowledge of the way that power dynamics and um influence and social capital and actual capital, how all that interplays to get things done in this country, or even just in your own little sphere of influence in your community, that you really cannot do much without wealth, or without some type of financial wherewithal. And so certainly I recognize that cannabis is not like a get rich uh, quick scheme or a overnight success type of situation, but I'm hoping incrementally, in over time, it's something that will put me in a position to do a lot more than I would have been able to do without, right, entering into this industry, and be able to leverage that to really benefit my community in as many ways as I'm able to. It remains to be seen how that will all play out. But I said, hey, you got to take the chance, right? You got to take the opportunity and see what you can do with it. And certainly looking at multiple different types of revenue streams. But I said that this opportunity is here. And I believe that we, as people of color, as Black people, as Black women specifically, should be at the forefront of it, in whatever way, kind of aligns to our values and our areas of expertise. And so that was part of, the impetus for me getting involved, and certainly having an appreciation and coming to more knowledge about the plant and the social justice aspect of it, helping people clear their records who have been wrongfully convicted of cannabis related charges. So it just kind of all really synergistically kind of worked together around my values. And that just felt like a personal call to, hey, get involved, figure out, you can figure this thing out. And, through divine whatever, here I am now, as one of the first licensees in the adult use market. And I take it as a very, as a huge privilege, as a huge privilege to be in this position.
Yes, yes, I agree. Congratulations, definitely. And I'm so happy to have someone who is a licensee come on the platform so we can find out, more about if it's something that we want to do. I mean, every state is different, every area is different, how they roll out their social equity and, licenses are different. In the state of Connecticut, it wasn't easy, but like you said, you were able to obtain one. But what called you to cannabis outside of the social justice and what you saw needed to be done and could be done with what you already do professionally? Was it something that you consumed? Did you use it for your own health and well-being? What was your journey like?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely am a late bloomer in many ways, but certainly as it relates to cannabis, right? Because being a child, born in the 80s and growing up with that whole narrative around being, scared to death of
Yeah.
using anything that was called a drug, it wasn't something that I ever wanted to be around as a youth. Because I think, we know why, like that hysteria and all that stigma was, and that propaganda was very much done by design. But
Right.
really I would say the pandemic is really what started my cannabis journey. Being a single mom of three and dealing with this new normal that definitely wasn't normal, not having answers for my children who are asking me, mom, are we going to be okay, what's happening, trying to do virtual court and virtual pre-K at the same time, and just dealing with all of that like many of us. And then watching the death toll, watching Black bodies be murdered on TV. It
Mhm.
was just a lot going on at that time. And I don't, I don't really consume alcohol like that, and other any other substance really. And so I started to learn more from friends and just doing my own research about how the plant is can help alleviate that stress and that anxiety and really allow, at least for me, to really be in the moment and deal with the here and now and
Mhm.
give myself grace and compassion and tackle one problem at a time instead of feeling like you have to take on the whole entire world. And
Right.
so it really, I would say, is part of why I was able to survive through the pandemic from a mental and emotional health standpoint, right?
Mhm.
Being more isolated, not really having those connections with your normal community because everyone was just in a state of fear and not really knowing what to do or how to move, or can you go visit people, can you not, like it was just so much during that year and a half, 2 year time period. And so that really started my personal consumption journey. And now I utilize it in my well-being, in my wellness, and I'm learning more about the benefits of cannabis, how terpenes interact, and really trying to get more into the plant and how the many ways that we just don't even know,
Right.
the ways that cannabis can help unlock certain memories and things like that. Like there's just a Pandora's box that is really to be discovered with this plant because we haven't been able to do any real research with it. And so it's an exciting time right now, to know that there is something natural that comes from the earth, that you don't have to be prescribed. Like I don't even take aspirin, so it's like to
Mhm.
know that there's an alternative to deal with some of the things that we're struggling and navigating. And so I always say, like, regardless of if you have a medical card or not, I feel like every person who utilizes cannabis is a patient of the
Yeah.
plant in one way or another, even if you don't recognize it, because you are looking for relief usually, whether it be relief from your racing thoughts or actual, chronic and physical pain, or you're looking for a spark of creativity, you're looking to increase libido. Like there's just so many things that it can be leveraged for. And so to me, that's really exciting. It's really fascinating. If I think about it from the business perspective, it's a wide open opportunity to really create customized experiences for people where
Mhm.
I think a lot of other consumable products don't allow that and lend itself to that. So I'm really excited to see what kind of innovation can happen in the industry. But I think first and foremost, certainly leveraging it as medicine and really keeping that at the center is really important for my message, and really advocating for conscious consumption of the plant, really being aware of why you are utilizing it, because anything could be overused and misused.
Right.
Even sugar, that's
Yes.
like probably my one addiction is sugar. So it's like, really tapping into self and being conscious of, what's going on with you and why it's leading you to feel like, okay, I need to, consume, and kind of working through those things at the same time and not trying to like mask them and, ignore them. So
Yes, yes, I agree. I mean, we are definitely aligned in purpose,
yeah.
purposeful consumption, and
Hmm.
intentional use, and being conscious, of course, about all things. Like you said, anything can be overused and overconsumed. And so, what I love is how you spoke to really your practices, not consuming anything, not being, an alcohol consumer, and why during the pandemic that was, even though it seems like it was so far away. It was just a couple of years, right? And there was a lot of unsurety during that time, and a lot of isolation. I lost a family member during that time, isolated and succumbed to a fentanyl, really a fentanyl, they would say overdose, but to me she would have, if she would have had access to the plant, because of this, the stigma, she stayed away from it. But being able to have access to that plant over an opioid that was laced with fentanyl, she would have still been here, at 43 years old, so it was a
Yeah.
hard time for us.
Yeah, for
And what
sure. I'm
I
so sorry to hear about that. So
Yes,
um
thank you, thank you.
yeah.
Her birthday's coming up, in April, National Cannabis Awareness Month, so
Yep.
I definitely want to share her story,
Hmm.
and share how we have to do the work of removing the stigma in our community to be able to access the plants
Right.
that help us. And like you said, everyone's consuming for a therapeutic reason.
Right.
Oftentimes we don't want to say that that's what it is, but that's what it is. And You being a professional in, the criminal justice system, as well as city councilwoman and on the board of so many nonprofits and community organizations, obviously there is still some stigma. So how do you deal with that in our community and in the professional world?
Yeah, it's exciting. It's interesting and exciting, right? Because I think one of the great things, like I've kind of solidified like my reputation, right? Like people trust me. I'm a credible source of information, right? I'm a good friend. I'm a good mother. And so that has already been is pretty solid, right? And so now when folks see me consuming or talking about it, it's like, oh, it's like you're not gonna suddenly put me in a box, a negative box, because you've already kind of put in your mind like this is someone who I know and trust and actually like, right? So I think folks who sit in a similar, position as myself really are should be inspired to be more bold and courageous around their consumption, because I think that helps to change that stigma of what, a person who consumes cannabis is. And it's been a great thing for me too, because I too had those negative stereotypes and what led me to like stay away from it for so long. And I wish I knew earlier, because there was, coping with stress throughout my life probably would have been a lot easier. But everything happens when it's supposed to. And so I haven't gotten any negative feedback, at least nobody to my face. So, like even my grandma, she was like, you got to be careful because, judges and did it. I was like, grandma, actually so many judges have pulled me aside and like have told me how proud they are of what I'm doing. You know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
don't think, I do think that when you have a credible source, someone that you trust, it's like, wow, okay. And a lot of people do consume, they're just not open about it. And
Right.
now we're trying to, in Connecticut, create more normalcy around it and something that's more done, out in the ocean open, because when people do things behind closed doors, that's where you have the opportunity for things to be misused, for there to be, miseducation, for people to do things irresponsibly, right? And so
Mhm.
the more normalized it becomes, we can kind of put social norms in place to keep each other safe, get it from a legal dispensary versus off the street, consume in community. This is really meant to be a communal plant, a
Right.
ceremonial type of thing. Don't get behind the wheel if
Mhm.
you after you've consumed, be somewhere safe, be amongst friends that you trust, just like anything else, right? And so I think it's been a really great experience for me so far in the community of people who are involved with the plant, whether from just consuming level or in the industry, has been a really, for the most part, until we talk about like the big business aspect, that can sometimes not be so pretty, but most people are just very welcoming and like so non-judgmental. You know what I mean? You're able to really let your guards down and like I always use the word compassion. I feel like this
Mhm.
plant allows you to have self-compassion and compassion for your fellow, brother and sister, which we really need a lot of right now. We need more of that to really be able to kind of overcome a lot of these issues that we're kind of facing as a society right now. Compassion is so critical. And I think the plant unlocks that a great deal.
Yes, yes, compassion is key. When you're called to the plan, if you have to consume, but even for those who are involved in the industry or consume for their own health and well-being, to help, even if you are not a consumer, it is okay to advocate for us to have access and the right to consume this plant. And so I thank you for sharing that, because I have a few professional family members who don't really want to speak up about the consumption, or still a little shy about it, or will stay away from it, and could really use it. A couple of my family members are judges, and they're concerned with, being associated or attached to, and I get it because of its federal status. It's still federally prohibited. And so you want to make sure that, you're okay. And this is how you get your bread and butter. And we understand. But self-care, if it is a form of self-care and you need it, don't be afraid to, like you said, come to a trusted source to see what it is that you can consume that is legal. CBD is, and CBG and all of those things are legal federally, and they are very much helpful, and they do wonderful things in the body. It is not just the federally prohibited cannabis plant, it's hemp as well, and you can have access to that. So I appreciate you definitely sharing that, and that kind of segues into Lady Jane CT and what that what you want to share in that space and under that umbrella, because you have the cultivation aspect of what you do in the industry, but also the wellness aspect. And so
Yeah.
I've been to a couple of your events, which have been amazing to me, especially in Connecticut. We don't have much, so.
Yeah, and thank you so much for always coming to our events. Definitely appreciate, and like I said, your energy is always so welcoming. Yeah, so again, and going back to like my personal process and kind of navigating through this journey, I didn't really find a lot of brands and events and things that resonated with me, a Black woman who likes luxury, who likes to be around well appointed space, who loves pretty packaging and beautiful jewel tones. I just didn't find that, and so I really wanted to create a brand that speaks to the type of woman that I am and would really resonate with other Black women, and really centering our self-care and our wellness and our well-being, kind of putting that at the forefront. And so that was the idea behind Lady Jane, and wanted to curate community around that, and through events and different things where you can have a good time, you can enjoy some type of element of consumption, whether it be a CBD vino or an infused menu or a smoke session, and just be in community and also learning more about the plant and the wellness benefits. So all of the events are really tailored to both the community and entertainment, but also education, and helping to again destigmatize the plant and show different faces that are in this community and different folks who are from different walks of life who consume cannabis. And I'm also working on a line, a sexual wellness line that will have cannabis in it. And the hope is that our retail dispensaries will have like the Lady Jane experience, right? Like when you come to the dispensary, you can also get this more customized experience around our products, and really working with the individual about what they need and curating something specifically for our consumer. So I'm really excited to create that in Connecticut, because I think we are, ripe for that type of innovation in the cannabis industry. So yeah, that's where I see the Lady Jane brand really going, creating our product line, really being that brand that speaks to a certain type of woman, the Lady Jane woman, the woman who likes luxury, who likes to relax, who works hard, who is a dedicated mom, wife, and all of those great things, but puts herself and her well-being at the center, and utilizing cannabis to leverage and enhance her wellness, whether it be her sexual wellness, whether it be her physical wellness, emotional and mental wellness, spiritual wellness, all of that wrapped up into one. So
Yes, beautiful, beautiful. I love it. I love that you've, really created a brand, that represents you and also so many of us, that we can kind of come to as a source for all the things, cannabis and wellness when, if you're not a DIYer like myself, so we need those. We need those trusted brands. I shared about choosing effective cannabis products and so many points that you touched on that was a part of the talk. So that's a very important need in the space, especially products geared towards women, and moms, and that was my next question. As a mom of three, as mentioned in the intro, how does that affect how you move forward in the industry, in the space? How are you speaking to your children about cannabis? And then what is that? Has that brought any, side eye looks, you being a mom, especially a
yeah,
black mom, we get
yeah,
a lot of, slack and flack about the state of our community and our children as if it's, all us.
right.
So how has that been?
Yeah, it's been very interesting, because in all full transparency, cannabis was a huge like chasm, I guess, in my marriage. My ex, without telling too much of his business, he consumed quite a bit. And at the time, me not recognizing that he was likely using it to manage, depression and stress and things like that, I just was just like, it was always like, man, like, can you stop? You know what I mean?
Um,
And so now that I'm in the industry, I definitely have, again, going back to that, to being more compassionate and really understanding like what leads people to consume, and being more understanding, and speaking to my kids, in a very open and honest way. They're definitely excited about mom being the plug and all of that. But for them, they are minors. And so, we
Yep.
have very candid conversations about, that them utilizing at this age is definitely not acceptable.
Right.
And, I have a 5-year-old, so we speak about it more in terms of a flower. Actually, she found I had a picture, like a close-up picture of of the plant kind of in the cultivation stage. And she was like, Mommy, I've changed your iPad screensaver to a flower, and I'm thinking I'm going to see a daisy or something, but it was the plant. So it's like it's a very normalized thing for her, like this is a flower, this is a plant. She doesn't, you know we're changing the language, with her age group, whereas my boys, it's like relearning because they're older, they're 15 and 18, and so it's a lot of really relearning around it. My oldest, he's like, he's not at all interested. My middle child, a little too interested, if you ask me. So you have to really meet them where they are and
Right.
explain in terms that are not, not demonizing, not scary or anything like that. But hey, this is a substance, and it is for adult use. So when you are 21, if you want to, talk about consuming and things like that, we can have that discussion. But right now, that's not certainly not something that you should be doing. And so, their brains and their bodies are still developing and so forth. And so just like anything else, I wouldn't want them engaging at this age. But yeah, we have very candid discussions around it for sure. And they are really, really proud of me to to be in this industry. They're really excited. Unfortunately, they won't be able to come into, the confines of the
Right.
business until they are older. But at least on opening day, when there's no plants in there yet, they'll be able to. But yeah, they're excited. But it does, I think the really cool and fascinating thing, right, is to be a parent and to be part of the re-education, right, of the next generation. So that way they grow up more informed with a more wider worldview around the plant, not afraid of it, not stigmatizing it, being able to understand that it is medicine, right? And they'll be able to impart that to their children. And so that's how really re-educate and change the narrative around it. So
I
yeah.
agree. I agree. A lot of education for me happens obviously with adults and stuff, but really when we want to see change and we want to see that transformation, it's really going to come from, you know, educating the youth in the science, science-backed education of the plant. And yes, it's not for adolescents, especially if it's not medicinal. There are children who have to utilize this plant for medicinal reasons. They're dealing with something terminal, something chronic. But just like with everything else, anything you may supplement, you don't want to have to use it for the rest of your life. So it may be for a period of time throughout their youth because they're dealing with that issue to help the restorative aspect of the plant bring that back into their body. But after that, right, if you're looking to imbibe, it's not for you until you are an adult. That's I have to go through the same conversation with my 20, almost 21-year-old, and my daughter, she's 16, and my son is 11. So I I truly understand. I truly understand. We're doing a lot of work, in and out of the space. When it comes to education and advocacy and activism, on all forefronts. So I really appreciate what you're doing and your time today. What I wanted to ask you to share is for the rest of us out here, sisters that want to get involved in the space. What are some of the first steps? To not just getting a license, but even you have the thoughts like, hey, you know what? I consume cannabis. I can do some amazing things. You may even be a professional in another area. How do you
Yeah.
how do you even start?
Yeah, I think doing a personal assessment, right, of like what you're most passionate about, what areas, in whether it be professionally or things that are more like in the hobby realm, what do you love to do, what really brings you joy, and figuring out how that can be leveraged to support the cannabis industry if you're not interested in like touching the plant directly, because there's such a need like for brands and like creating a real community and culture around consuming, right, from hopefully we'll be able to have lounges one day and be able to consume at lounges. But just even when you think about merchandising and like ancillary products to be able to, like, trays and grinders and so many things. And if you're a tax accountant or an attorney or somebody who's a business consultant, somebody in the tech space, I think tech is a huge area of opportunity for the
Yeah.
cannabis industry, really, again, creating a personalized experience and leveraging technology to do that. I would love to see more Black women and people of color get into tech, specifically for the cannabis industry, whether you're supporting the business side of it, with different types of accounting software or customer what do you call it, consumer marketing software, or more on the customer side and creating apps that really speak to the customer. I think there's a wide open space for that. Again, branding and licensing and creating the culture around it. You see a lot of celebrities jumping into the space and putting their names on things, and I think that's very, very exciting. But I think it really starts with doing an internal inventory of what you're passionate about, because this can be a very complex industry to navigate, right? And so if it's not something you truly love to do, it'll probably be even that much more difficult. And then, again, looking at the industry, if you're here in Connecticut, I think it's a wide open opportunity for many of the ancillary business events. Is a huge thing. We need more events that bring people together around the plant, that can bring vendors together, create, again, a strong supply chain, as well as the things that people want to see with that, coupled with that. So yeah, I think personal inventory, and then really figuring out what gaps exist in the market right now and where some things even need to be created that people are not thinking about, are always sustainable packaging, right? Like when we think about
Yes.
being eco-friendly, and how do we create packaging that can be reused and but also looks sexy and looks nice, and
Mhm.
all of that. I think there's a lot of opportunity in the industry, and folks just have to kind of figure out where their niche is and what they enjoy, what they're passionate about, and go for it. And then if you're, more interested in the plant touching side of things, certainly learning the regs, kind of being in touch with the DCP and the Social Equity Council, and figuring out, when they're going to release another round of licenses, being in touch with those of us who are currently licensees, because I know some people may be interested in selling their license to other social equity eligible individuals. So,
Right.
those are things too, to be networking with those folks. It's not a big group of us, right? And so you can find out right on the Department of Consumer Protection's website who has the licenses, who's provisionally licensed, and so forth, and figure out how to forge those relationships if that's something that someone is interested in. But I do think professionals who already have skill sets in accounting, tax, tax
Yeah.
preparers, business developers, investors, certainly lawyers for sure, human resource personnel,
Yeah.
um, those who work in risk management and insurance, like all of that is, we need all of those services within
Yeah.
the industry. So if you're in those professions, you just figure out how to leverage that talent to this market, and you'll definitely be successful, because it's a need. We're going to need it all.
Yes, yes. This is so true. This is so true. And so for, all of us who were wondering, well, how am I going to come into the space? And, hey, I may not be able to get access to a license, but there are some other things that I can do to provide support in the industry. And like you said, align with those who are already involved. That's an exciting opportunity as well. And especially here in Connecticut. And so what do you see, or what do you hope for the Connecticut market, like, you know, yeah,
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
coming
Again,
years?
it's very exciting. I'm really hoping that Connecticut really capitalizes on the fact that there are a lot of women of color in who are license holders at this point. I don't know per capita if there are any other states that have this many. And so I think, for me, we are the trendsetters. We kind of set the tempo for many things. So seeing us in a position to really be able to direct where the industry goes here, I think is very, very exciting when we think about looking at, people who look like us, who have not had access to the opportunity, who have not had access to the plant, even in a way that hasn't been demonized, and really embracing folks and bringing them in. Working with those who have been in the gray and legacy market, and figuring out how to provide technical assistance so they could, create brands and get licensing deals and create what I believe is going to be the next wave of this industry, customer experiences around brands. I think cannabis has kind of rested on its laurels with, the bigger companies being able to be very generic, and now you're seeing a lot more branding pop up, and it's because that's where things are going. People want the Jordan experience in
That's
cannabis.
right.
They want to say, oh yeah, I made my own strain by mixing this and this, and and doing that. So I think that's where we're headed, and that's very exciting. In addition, I want to see more events, more events that really cater to the cannabis community in a very social, responsible way, where the events are safe, where the events are fun, where it's bringing people together in community to be both educational and entertaining around the plant, incorporating it with the arts, incorporating it with, you know, fitness experiences and so many other things. I think that's a really exciting opportunity. And certainly seeing where the revenue from this industry will go into the disproportionately impacted areas and helping those communities in ways that we haven't seen before with
Right.
business. So I think that's going to be also a very another exciting thing here in Connecticut.
Yes, yes, yes. I agree. I agree. We definitely want to see all of those things unfold and really be create a transformative cultural,
Hmm.
community, with the plant at the
Absolutely.
forefront. So I appreciate that. And so my final question is, for us women who decide to go at it and be entrepreneurs in this space that is heavily male dominated, like you
Yeah,
said, it's a very small percentage of women in this space and then even smaller percentage of women of color.
yeah.
So how has that experience been for you to be the boss and have to orchestrate so many things in this space? And how you are you getting any pushback? How should we move forward? And show up in this space.
Yeah, I always think about like the story that folks hear, when a group of people come into like a conference room and a black woman is like sitting at the table and they're like, "Oh, don't sit there. That's where the CEO sits." And then once everybody gets in, she introduces herself and like, "I am the CEO," right? Like I want a story where that's like the norm. Like when people are in a room and they don't see a black woman CEO, it's like, "Oh, they feel like something's wrong." You know what I mean?
Right.
Because that should be the standard. And so, we have overcome so much. I think first of all, our courage and our bravery and our tenacity has allowed us to kick down doors and create tables that didn't exist. And I think we have to take that same spirit into this industry. But I am finding more and more that people really do want to hear what we have to say in this industry, because I think there's just been so much, the cacophony is just so, it's like an echo chamber, and so we're in a time where there is a desire for something different and something new, and I think that new voice and that new vision is going to come from black women. And so I haven't really, at least within the networks that I've been navigating it with, people have been very embracing and very much wanting to hear what I have to say. I don't always know what to say because I am new to the industry, and so I think we have to really capitalize on that and support each other through these processes. I think those I have found so many women of color, black women specifically, to be, mentors and people who I go for advice as I'm navigating this space. I think sharing the information is going to always be one of our winning assets. And we have to continue to do that. But I think don't be nobody should be scared or intimidated because we've overcome much harder things than navigating this industry. This is like fun to me, you know what I mean? And I don't mean to say that in like an arrogant way, but we've been in charge of lives, people, our family's health care, financial well-being, like really literally trying to get someone out of jail and like,
Because
preserve their liberty. This is nothing, so just use all of that you already have and come authentically as you, and you will find that that is the winning recipe for sure.
yes, yes. Thank you so much. I think that was, a great way to end our session. And, hopefully we can have you back on the platform.
Absolutely.
And, I want to do maybe some type of roundtable or some type of event where a lot of us are on here speaking to a specific topic that really affects us. And I appreciate all that you do. And, I can't wait to see what else you present us with here in Connecticut and throughout the US. I could see it just growing, and Lady Jane CT being an international brand,
Oh, thank
obviously.
you.
And
I
so
received that. Thank you so much.
yes, yes. So, and if you want to connect with Tiana, of course, all of her links and stuff will be in the description on YouTube, and I'll make sure I share that. But how can someone reach you for those listening and not watching?
Yeah, and first I just want to say thank you so much for having me on again. Anytime you pick up the phone, you know I'm gonna be there. This has been a true pleasure and a true honor to speak with you. But yeah, anybody can reach me out on, I guess it's Instagram would probably be the best way, at Lady Jane underscore CT, ladyjanect.com. I'm pretty accessible, even though I don't do a lot of posting on social media. I'm always checking my messages. But yeah, I'm always around.
Okay, great, great. Yes. And you'll be able to read her full bio in the description as well. I will put all her links to check out ladyjanect.com and upcoming events that she is hosting. And if you are a Black woman in the cannabis space or you consume for your own health and well being and you would like to be featured, you would like to connect and join the tribe, please reach out to me, Takesha, at Black Woman Who Blaze on IG, or you can comment below, and I'll definitely reach back out. Again, Tiana, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate your time. You're a very busy woman, so so thank
Thank
you.
you.
And until next time, everyone. Peace, love, and light.